Your Honor.
Are the jurors here?
No, we're missing 4.
Missing 4.
The number 4, not 4 of them. Just number 4. There's 4 of them.
4 of them are missing.
Really?
Because they said that somehow they were misinformed saying that there's no parking in the parking garage today.
Ah,
And my guess is probably because there's a football game at the Alamo Dome. Yes.
but you're thinking people,
UTSA and Army.
so you're thinking people, there's a football game today at the
Yes,
Alamo?
ma'am.
What time?
It starts, well, they start tailgating early if you're a tailgater, once
Mhm,
upon a time,
mhm.
but starts at 6.
Ah, okay.
So if we leave.
So we can leave to go there to tailgate for lunch.
They bring us pizza, Judge.
All right.
But they said that they had a hard time looking for parking.
Ah,
Yeah, no, they're tailgating. It's UTSA and Army.
and Deshaun, you're gonna teach me how to use the iPhone.
Today.
So it's gonna be easy, correct?
Yes, it is.
People say that,
Promise you.
but I'm an Android person. I was upset when they took my BlackBerry.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, no.
Hi.
Chair.
Oh, Mr. Callahan, do you have any objections to this? If you have any objections, let me know.
Please. Got a bunch of chair. Looking off from JD real fast.
Sure.
FedEx and- I have the secretary check.
All right, Mr. Cox, we're just waiting on jurors. I'm being told that 4 are missing.
All right, no problem.
And Diana, we're gonna get back on track with our book club.
Yes, I haven't even had the one.
I know. So life happens, but I will tell you, the first one, don't let her stay. Next week, Friday, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're having our book club meeting.
Okay, but I'm gonna remind you.
Oh, yeah, we're doing it on Friday. And then I'll have a Q&A session.
Fetal position, beat that beat Hank.
All right, everyone. Court is calling 2022 CR 3745, State of Texas versus Joseph Dale Harris. Could I have parties announced for the record, please, for the state?
Jason Garahan and Daniel Escobar, Your Honor.
Defense?
Cornelius Cox.
All right, and are you Mr.
Lorraine from.
All right, and are you Mr. Harris?
Yes, ma'am.
Are both parties ready to proceed?
State is ready, Your Honor.
We're ready, Judge.
All right. And state, do you have your witness ready?
Yes, we do.
Would you like to already call them in?
The judge is gonna call the jury and then she'll swear you in. And then we'll begin.
I'm treasure hunting to find the room. All right, we're ready.
All right, for the jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. State, if you call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the state calls Julio Zamora.
All right, can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so the members of the jury can hear and the court reporter can hear. If you'll state your name for the record and spell it, please.
Julio Zamora, JULIO ZAMORA.
State.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Zamora, good morning. Well, let's just begin. Where do you work here in San Antonio?
I work at the North American Development Bank,
And where is that located?
203 South St. Mary's, in the third floor.
On the third floor of, what's the building called?
The International Center.
International Center. And roughly, how far is it from where you're sitting right now?
The building,
Yes,
oh, it's 3 blocks away.
3 blocks
1
away.
block and 2 blocks up.
Okay. And on February 28, 2022, were you working that day?
Yes,
And were you in your office?
I was.
Does your office window face a certain street?
My office window looks over South St. Mary's.
And so were you in your office that day?
Yes, I was.
Roughly around 11:30 in the morning, 11:30 a.m., were you in your office?
I was.
Did you witness or hear anything unusual?
I heard a number of bangs of gunshots, 4 or 5, pause, and then 1 more.
Okay, so you were inside your office. Were you by the window at the time, or were you just, I guess, in your office?
No, I was in my office facing the computer screens face exactly the opposite side of the window.
Mhm.
So I was working on the computer, so I was with my back to the window.
And you said you heard several bangs,
Yes,
and then you said that your testimony just previously, what you heard, like gunshots.
yeah, no, there were, well, the first couple, I thought they were like somebody hammering,
Mhm.
but then it was obvious that they were gunshots.
And I believe you testified that you heard several.
Several, 4 or 5, and then a pause, and then 1 more.
And then after the pause and 1 more, did you hear any other bangs?
No,
And did all the bangs sound familiar, like they were the same bangs?
yes,
And after you heard these bangs, what did you do?
I went to the window to see what was going on. I could hear commotion on the office right next to me. And so I went to my window to see what was going on.
And what did you see as you looked out the window?
I saw a person dressed in dark with like a dark hoodie with white or red markings on it,
Mhm.
standing over another person who had been shot and was, on the floor bleeding. And yelling to another third person who was by the side to call the police.
Okay, well, let me break that down. The person that you described wearing like a hoodie or something and red and dark clothing, was that individual standing up?
Yes, he was standing over a person on the ground,
And
close to a tree.
next to a tree, and the person that's on the ground, you stated that he was bleeding,
Yes,
and you stated did you notice it was a male?
well, no, person. I
I
couldn't
get,
tell
yeah.
from the distance, yes.
Okay, so you assumed it was a male,
Yes, I assumed it was.
and do you recall, you said bleeding, do you recall where you, could you tell where the bleeding was coming from or where it was at?
No, it was just the person lying and you could see that there was a stain underneath, right?
Okay.
Forming underneath.
Okay. And you stated that someone is yelling to somebody that was standing off to the side. Who was yelling? Was the person that was standing over the individual on the ground?
The person who was standing over the individual was yelling at a man who was standing by a white pickup truck
Okay.
to call the police.
And then what happened after that?
The person who was standing over the other guy walked back in the direction of the truck stop, but not quite to the truck stop, more to there's a fence because we're right over the river, so closer to the fence. At that point, I went to the other office, which has a window facing that way.
Mhm.
And he just like sat down, waiting for the police to show up.
Did you see that individual do anything else?
Another person who was closer by the bus stop, walked by and they, fist bumped
Fist bump. What do you mean? What do you mean by fist bump?
by,
You show me.
like that.
Just came up?
Yeah.
Did a fist bump. Okay, and that's the one that was standing over the individual that was bleeding on the ground.
Yes, the one who was calling for the police.
First, I'm going to show you two different items of state exhibit number 73 and state exhibit number 74. Do you recognize these items?
Yes, this is the building that I work at from two different angles. One's above and the other one's from the street.
And have you seen these before?
Yes,
And actually, have you written on these?
yeah, I circled my office, the place where the pickup truck was, and the window on the office right next to me.
Okay, and so these fairly and accurately represent, it's not from that day, it's from Google, is that right?
Yeah.
It doesn't say that it's from that particular day, but it's a fair and accurate mapping of this area?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
thank you.
what the area looks like.
Your Honor, the state offers state exhibit number 73 and 74 will tender to defense for any objection.
No objection.
All right, States Exhibits 73 and 74 are admitted without objection.
Judge, may I publish?
Yes.
I'm gonna show you what's been marked state exhibit number 74. This circle portion up here, what is that
That's the window from my office.
from your office? And then this rectangle box here, what does that represent?
That's where the white pickup truck was.
And this X, what does that represent?
That's the person who was standing next to pickup truck who was being yelled at to call the police.
And on there, can you point on the screen where you saw the individual standing and also where you saw the individual lying on the ground, if you remember,
Oh, that's in this area right there.
right there? And I'm just gonna go ahead and point it out on the overhead here. Is that generally the area right there?
Yeah, right there.
And then I'm gonna show you what's been marked state exhibit number 73. This round circle here that was drawn on the map, what is that?
That's the window from the office next to me.
And it has like, it looks like a line and an arrow pointing towards.
That's where the person who was standing over the other person moved back, so didn't quite go back to the. This right here is the bus stop, so it didn't go quite back to it, see, but more behind it.
Okay, so like. over
All right,
here.
excuse me. And if the witness needs to step down into the well to point on the exhibit, you're more than welcome to do that.
You mind sitting down here and just point it
Sure.
out there? Makes it a little
And
easier.
Mr. Cox, if you need to maneuver, you're more than welcome to do that as well.
Thank you, Judge.
That's.
Just make sure you keep your voice up so the court reporter can hear.
Okay, so this is where the person moved, so from here to there,
Uh-huh.
not to the bus stop, but behind it, and that's the wall that I was talking about. And
Okay.
this is the window that's next to my office.
And so when you were looking down from this area, is that when you saw the fist pump?
Objection
Yes.
leading.
All right, that'll be sustained.
Okay. What did you see the individual do when he walked back towards the bus stop?
So when, it was not just when he walked back to the bus stop, he walked back here to the wall,
Mhm.
and somebody walked from the bus stop to him and they fist bumped.
Thank you. Sweet. Now, Mr. Zamora, were you at the bus stop earlier in the day or right before this happened?
No,
Did you see anything at the bus stop that happened previous to the bangs and you looking out the window?
no, I was facing the other way.
Do you know, if you know, do you know any of these individuals that you saw outside your window that day?
No, I don't.
And have you met any of those individuals?
No,
That
I
you're-
have not.
We'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, defense.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Now. You testified that you initially made notice of these events. Sorry. That you indicated that you initially know of these events when you heard the bang. Right,
Several banks, yes.
several bangs. Now, when you recall, say what time it was?
No,
Do you recall, you said you were in your office where you involved with a telephone call, or were you doing something else when you first heard the noise?
I was working on an Excel file, a computer model.
So I believe you indicated that you heard the noise. You quickly, well, you determined that it may be gunshot, correct?
Yes,
And then at that point, were you seated at your desk or were you standing up there?
no, I was sitting at my desk.
Okay, so at that point, you get up from where you were seated and immediately you go to the window.
Correct.
Correct. Now, you're in your office, how many are you on first, second, third floor?
Third floor.
Third. Now, is there if you're looking out, I believe you said you indicated you looked out the window, correct? Okay. Does the window open up or is it something that's sealed and closed?
No, it's a closed window. It's a single pane of glass.
Now, when you got to the window, did you see anyone shooting at anybody at that point?
No,
And once you got to the window, it's fair to say there were no other shots that you heard, noises that were.
no.
Okay. Now, you said that you saw, looked out the window, you saw someone, a male that was, you said dressed in something black or dark.
Dark, yes.
Okay. And from that location, you're talking about maybe more than, you have to guess at a distance. And if you don't know, you can tell me you don't know. In terms of the feet, from where you were to the area where you saw this person standing, what type of distance are we talking?
I don't know, but I'm sure that you can use Google Maps and figure it out.
Oh. Now, as you're looking at this person initially, and based on your positioning, did you have a frontal view of the person that's standing, side view, or are you looking at that person from behind?
It's looking at the person from the side because so I'm looking this way, they're looking that way. So I'm looking at the left shoulder.
Okay. And you said that your testimony is that this person said something to someone that was in a pickup truck, correct?
Right.
Okay. And it was loud enough, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was loud enough for you to actually hear what he was saying from your office that was 3 stories up.
Yes.
Would you say the person who said this was he screaming this or just talking in a way, if you can determine like I'm talking to you?
Not talking, having a conversation. It was a scream. It was
Loud,
call the police. It
Yes.
was urgent, it was loud, it was
it was
strong
urgent,
voice.
it was loud, strong voice. In terms of the voice, and I know you have probably never heard that person talk before. Did it appear to be a voice where someone was emotional?
Your Honor, I'm
Can't say
subject to
that.
speculation.
Well, if you know.
All right, that'll be overruled if you know. If you don't know,
I can't say that.
Okay. Did you hear anything like anxiety or excitement? You know,
No, but
did the person who was saying it, did he say it more than once?
at least twice.
At least once,
Yes,
could have been more,
could have been.
and it was, do you recall exactly what he said? Just call the police, please call.
Call the police, just what you said.
And do you recall approximately how long this person stayed near this truck? How long, the person who's yelling, call the police, could you determine how long he stayed next to the truck?
He was not next to the,
Oh, he wasn't next to it?
no,
Okay,
he was yelling that while he was standing over the other person. The person who was next to the truck was the one who was being yelled at.
okay,
This person turned around and walked to the other side.
okay. So it's fair to say that the person that was you say near the truck, that person was not actually inside the truck, he was standing up next to this truck.
He was standing next to the truck.
Okay.
Next to the left door, driver's door.
So at this point, the person who's doing the yelling, he's standing in one spot, correct?
Yes,
And he's saying, yelling, call the police, call the police. Now, I believe you indicated that happens, and there did come a time when the person who was doing the yelling moved his position, correct?
yes.
Okay. And when he moved his position, did he run? Did he walk? How did he move from position?
No, he walked back to the wall.
Okay,
Yes,
he moved back to the wall. And can you see?
yes.
Okay, on State's exhibit number. Seven.
73 and 74.
Okay, on 73, and I think you came by and you kind of looked at it, Martha. Can you see the area where this person walked to?
yes.
That program?
Yeah.
Could you show? This is.
We walked from this area back to here.
Okay, and did he, when he got to that area, could you point again where he walked to? Right there. At that point, did he sit down somewhere? No.
Yeah, he sort of like leaned against, the wall is a little taller than that thing right there, so he sort of leaned against that.
Okay. Did there come a time when he moved from that position?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Okay. Now, So when he sat down, you said that a little later, someone came up to him, correct?
Yes,
Now, at this point, have you moved, you said you was in your office, but I believe you testified that at one point you moved to a different location.
yes,
Okay, in that chain of events, from the time you saw this person yelling to the person that was standing near the truck, when did you make your move to go to a different location in your office?
when this person started moving back, I moved to the office next door to mine, which has two windows, window facing the street and another window facing over the river. And that's where I went.
So during the time you were making the movement from one office, from one location rather to the second location, that is the same time that the individual is walking back to where he was seated.
Yes,
Did you at any during that time lose eye contact with the person you were observing?
obviously, because I moved from one window to another window, I had to exit my office and go to the other office, right?
Correct.
Yes,
So by the time you got to the other office, was he seated already, or did you actually see him being seated?
no, he was seated already.
So you lost, so I can follow you. So you lost eye contact. I mean, you lost contact in terms of your observation of him, seeing him. And when you get to the next office, at that point, he's seated, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Now, you said this other individual, somebody else, came up to him while he was seated. And that's when you testified that this pump happened, correct?
correct.
Okay. Could you tell who that, could you describe who that other person did he look like, or what's I would dress, or she would dress, or
No,
uh did you ever during the time period where the people that you observed were at the area, the bus stop area, did you ever leave your office and come downstairs while any of this stuff was, while people were still on the scene?
no,
Now, have you, and you spoke about, testify about the fist pump. Have you ever fist pumped anybody
yes,
more than once?
in my life,
Yeah. It's fair to say that even if somebody joined fists, called a fist pump, that could have various meanings, correct?
yes,
And if, say for instance, if you say approached and somebody put the fist out to fist pump you, even if your intention was not to fist pump them, you may give them a little fist pump. Is that fair to say?
I guess, yes.
Now, were you still observing, excuse me, this scene, or this area looking out the window, when the police arrived?
Yes.
But I believe your testimony was that prior to hearing the initial bangs or shots, you weren't making any observations outside your window, correct?
Correct.
Now, do you recall whether the person that was seated, that was doing the yelling that you saw seated, did that person remain on the scene until the police arrived?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall whether that person, after he was seated, and the police arrived, did he ever stand up again or move again?
Between the time he was seated originally to when the police arrived, no, I don't recall. I mean, it was that person, there was the person who was, laying on the ground, and, obviously you had ambulance, et cetera, people there, so.
Stop past witness.
State.
No question, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excused by the state, Your Honor.
Excuse.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone except for attorneys for the state of the defense. All right, thank you. You may step down.
Thank you.
State, call your next witness.
State calls Dr. Garrett Phillips.
All right, can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah.
All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so that the members of the jury and the court reporter can hear. And if you'll state your name for the record.
My name is Garrett Phillips.
All right, state.
Now, Dr. Phillips, who do you currently work for?
I work for the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office.
And what do you do for the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office?
I am the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner.
And what type of training and education did you have to receive in order to become a medical examiner?
After completing my undergraduate studies at Baylor University, I completed 4 years of medical school at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, 4 years of anatomic and clinical pathology residency, also at Baylor College of Medicine, a year of forensic pathology fellowship training here at the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office. And following all of that, I received my physician's license, my board certifications in anatomic, clinical, and forensic pathology. And I have worked in the field since.
And so how long have you been a medical examiner for Bexar County?
For Bexar County, I returned in December of 2021.
Have you been a medical examiner anywhere else?
Before that, I was employed at the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences in Houston.
And what are your duties as a medical examiner?
The medical examiner is a forensic pathologist tasked with examining the bodies of persons who have died suddenly or unexpectedly or of unnatural causes. In the course of determining cause and manner of death for those persons, the medical examiner may review medical records, review any investigative information, and may examine the body both externally and internally in the course of an autopsy.
And can you explain to the jury what goes into the process of conducting an autopsy?
An autopsy is an examination of the body of someone who has died. It will begin with an examination of the outer surfaces of the body. At that time, we'll document any scars, marks, or identifying tattoos, whatever clothing or lack of clothing the body is wearing, whatever medical intervention or lack of medical intervention has been performed on the body. And we'll document any injuries or trauma that we see on the body. Following that, we will also examine the internal aspect of the body, the internal cavities and the organs. We'll dissect those, and we will again be looking for evidence of natural disease, evidence of trauma, and we may save specimens that will be submitted for further laboratory testing.
And is the Bexar County Medical Office, is that a public office?
That is an office authorized by state statute.
And does it only conduct autopsies in situations where a crime is believed to have occurred?
No, we will accept jurisdiction on cases which are established by statute. Those statutes are more broad reaching than criminal cases only. They include anyone who may have died suddenly or unexpectedly in addition to unnatural deaths. So someone who has died suddenly or unexpectedly from a natural cause may still come to the office and be examined by us, since they were not necessarily under the care of a physician or expected to die at that time, or indeed diagnosed with anything at that time. That diagnosis may have been completely unknown.
And as a medical examiner, are you a custodian of records for the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office?
Now, I am a custodian of records.
And what does that mean?
What that means is when I need a record, I will request it. It will be pulled from either our on-site or off-site archives. It will be given to me to do with as I need. I am responsible for the care and maintenance of that record while it's under my control. And once I'm done with it, it can be returned to those archives.
And what exactly would be contained in one of the records from the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office?
Depending on the case, there may be varied contents, but certainly one of the critical contents of the case will in fact be the report of the examination that was done on the body, copies of the death certificate, and copies of any investigative report that we created in the course of investigating the death.
And would that record include any photographs that were taken during the autopsy?
We will maintain a digital copy of those photographs, and as necessary, those photographs can be printed out and retained as well.
And in addition to that, in the record, is there any type of, is toxicology usually done?
Depends on the case, but I would say more often than not, we will perform toxicology in a case where a body has been brought to our office for examination.
Now, let's get to the case, or let's get to the autopsy that was performed in regard to this case. Were you the medical examiner who conducted this autopsy?
I was not.
Who conducted this autopsy?
Dr. Melinda Flores.
And is she still a part of the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office?
She is not.
And were you able to review the case file that was prepared in this autopsy in preparation for your testimony?
I did.
And what exactly does that mean? What did you do?
When I'm reviewing a case for a proceeding such as this, I'm going to review the autopsy report. I'll also review the toxicological findings. If a diagram of the body is created, I will review that as well. I'll review any photographs that were taken during the course of the autopsy, and I will review our investigative report that's performed when the death is, or that's created when the death is reported to us.
And how is that, how is that going to enable you to testify?
My review of those items is going to enable me to formulate my own opinions as to the cause and manner of death, which again is the sort of statutory mandate for the office for the medical examiner.
So let's get into the specific case number. What was the case number of the autopsy conducted here?
You know, I'll object at this point. We approach.
Yes. Y'all could lower that light when it's not in use because it's shining right in my eye.
Sorry, Judge.
That's okay. And sometimes it shines in Diana's eye either, and that's a bright light. Okay. All right, Mr. Cox, you wanted to take the witness on board here, you may.
Oh, yeah. Now, again, your last name, Doctor
Phillips.
Phillips. Okay. And you, when did you come back to work for the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office?
December of 2021.
Okay. Now, you were in March of 2022, you were working at the Medical Examiner's Office, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, with this particular autopsy, were you present when it was done?
Not to my recollection, this was not my
It
autopsy.
was not your autopsy. And the autopsy report that's, that I would imagine that you use in addition to help you in your determination. Did you didn't sign off on it? Autopsy report, did you?
No, I did not.
Because there's a Norma Farley, a Kimberly Molina, doctors, and Melinda Flores. And you're not one of them.
No, I am not.
Okay. So everything that you testified to in terms of the photos that were taken, how they were taken, who took them, any conversations that went on with reference to creating the autopsy in this case, you were not a part.
To be clear, when you're talking about how the exam was performed or how the photos were taken, as a medical examiner in the office, of course, I am familiar with the procedures of the office.
Sure.
So did I make the report or take the photos? No. If you say I am not familiar with how they were taken, I don't know if I would agree entirely with that, since I am familiar with how the office works.
Sure, okay, and I'm saying, but in particular, with this particular autopsy, you weren't present when any of that work was done, correct? On this particular autopsy.
Again, not to the best of my recollection. If I was in the morgue, I, again, was not performing this autopsy or doing any of the photographs, no.
Did you create a separate autopsy report?
No.
All right, I'll pass the witness judge. I don't know what the state wants to say anything, but I'm ready to make my objections now.
All right, and your objections?
Judge, that everything that this witness would testify to would be based on hearsay. And it would deny my client the fundamental right of confrontation. I will not be able to question the person.
Okay,
that's
all right, if you all want to review the Melendez-Diaz case and get back with me, and we will be back here because the jury's going to be lined up at 10:45. If you all be back here at 10:40.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. confrontation
And
and lack
Judge,
of confrontation.
the state is arguing that this is non-testimonial. First, he's an expert witness, so he's able to talk about autopsies and the processes that the medical examiner's office goes through. Two, he's a custodian of records, so he's able to obtain records from the medical examiner's office and review them. In addition, this is an exception to hearsay. It's 8038. It's government records. It's done in the course of the office's statutory duties. He's testified that the office isn't preparing these autopsy reports solely for the purpose of prosecuting cases. It's by statute, they have to prepare these. So it would be non-testimonial. He's giving his own opinion as to what the report indicates along with the photographs together.
All right, so with regards to the actual autopsy report, I'm going to sustain the objection to this witness testifying what's in the autopsy report. With regards to any photographs, if they're properly authenticated, then those will be allowed. If this witness wants to, I will allow this witness to testify about if the photographs are authenticated. If he want to testify to what's in the photograph, then he can testify to that. But he's not allowed to testify what's in the autopsy report unless he is one of the persons who actually signed off on the autopsy report. The court is going to find that to allow him to testify about the actual autopsy report is a violation of the defendant's right for confrontation. All right, is there anything else? And we're going to go off the record. You can mute us. Could I see both parties?
Yeah, at this point. even- keep up with it.
This is exactly why.
Jeff, we could have just a few more minutes. We were.
I mean,
Putting out
yeah,
some-
just to let you know, I mean, the reason is that we have to print out additional photos. I'm gonna run and get those photos. If you just give me I mean, I can be, yeah. I'm sorry. I have to run all the way up to the sixth floor in the tower and come back. I mean, 5 minutes is it?
It's gonna be a few minutes.
Yeah, I don't know, you know.
Not here though?
I'll run over there.
Yes. It's only just gonna be a few minutes.
I don't have my phone on me. I'm gonna
It's
go that
on
way.
Facebook.
That's where's it?
It's one-
There's one.
something.
Okay.
These some of the photos that you're also gonna be getting.
External level. Yeah, that makes this thing. Yes. And these don't have lights, but I need a special. Which groups? So that's this one, right? Which one? That's this one, right? So what I need is these 160.
160, 160.
That's the opposite side.
Oh. Oh. Oh, you can see, you know, that stuff too. Yeah, yeah, I went by there. Yeah. No, not 437. I went to it's 270, 27. Yeah, that's the one. Wait. Yeah. Yeah, and they told me that they just sent it back. Okay. All right, I did anything on those medical records? Did you email her? She never did it. Okay, yeah, I'll come in. October, do they have them working the last weekend?
Upstairs to get photos.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm good, as long as it, Cause I don't leave till the 30th, which is a Monday. So. Let's see. The last, how many days and how many times in my book?
You okay?
Yes, someone challenged me.
Don't fall.
I'm not going. I'm not going.
Oh, okay.
Not bad.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. No, I'm good. All right. All right. All right. Thanks a lot. Monday is.
Judge, on Monday, when do you anticipate us starting on Monday? Okay, I'm just trying to juggle some things.
Not feeling.
I would not, I wouldn't, you couldn't get me to step on a cruise ship anymore.
And Birmingham.
They were running. They were running to the cruise ship. And they were pulling up, I guess it's called a gangplank. And so the passengers made it onto the gangplank. But they pushed them on and they landed in the water and I think they died.
They pushed them off the gangplank
Yes, because they're like, this ship is leaving.
and they actually pushed them off the gangplank.
Yes, and because we live in where we've been, there's video. Because my whole point is, if I'm on a
How
cruise
much
ship
is it?
and we're stopping at a port, I want to be rushed, like, oh my gosh, everybody make sure, synchronize your watch so we can get back on time.
Yeah, well,
It seems so risky to get on a cruise ship these days. I would just not, huh?
Is why we're stuck on a cruise ship. Because they were in Greece or somewhere, they had the strike with the dock workers. And I was thinking, oh, great, they can still get off the cruise ship, but no, you can't because the dock workers are on strike. You can't even dock the ship. So I don't know if they've made it back or not, but they're stuck on the ship 24/7.
unless you get one of those life raft.
But no, they won't even let you get your life raft to the dock.
I'm
It's
out
the
of,
dock workers.
Go to the beach and just
right.
drive it up on the beach on the shore.
Yeah. I'm taking this life raft and I'm out of here.
Go
Oh, gosh, adios.
swim.
Yeah.
I don't know. Too
They could-
risky. I don't know.
They could airlift them out of there, maybe,
Mm.
Now,
I guess.
that's very expensive.
Yes, it is. I don't even know if that would be
The
actually.
helicopter,
feasible.
like Lucy.
Well,
Remember Lucy came on the helicopter?
On the ship for a helicopter to land.
No, Lucy didn't have they
I don't
lowered
know.
Lucy down to the,
How could
you don't remember that one? They were in
I
Europe.
watched I Love Lucy. I've seen the black and white version.
Yeah.
All the way up to
Those
the
are the best, no, the only versions are the black and white versions. The color, by the time we got the color, nah. They lowered Lucy to on the ship from a helicopter. Yeah, yeah. And Ricky was catching her, and then when he caught hold to her, they raised him up, and he was going up in the helicopter too, and then they just finally put her down. So,
We're waiting for them about their
Almost there,
photographs.
Judge.
He said they're
all
almost
this stuff,
ready.
we were talking about out of blue.
10 minutes or
Okay, okay.
Probably 5.
That should be enough, Judge.
You know, I think they still have the old printer upstairs. Dot matrix. Yes, I've been on several. Did you enjoy? We're actually going to get.
I'm called loopy. You don't have loopy, I'm gonna see whether they put on fucking time.
But it's very crowded. No, it's not.
When did they send it?
That's what they're going. Basically, like I said, it's as long as it goes to there, so, this one, yes. So.
You got loopy's number right.
Make sure.
It doesn't matter.
Call loopy.
Awesome. So this one, is it any other ones, like any other numbers that you see to me to relieve the money?
Like, you know, my mom would say, I'm not gonna have my mama do saying, my baby wouldn't go on the ship because she can't swim. And then they end up showing her photos. I'm not gonna have my mom look at that. She's like, who forced my baby on a cruise ship? But I have, when I was in Greece and Italy, I see those ships come in, they're just huge. They're huge cities on like it's.
Question about the.
I think they should make everyone watch the Titanic before you get on the cruise.
We don't, I mean, I wouldn't.
With the
I wouldn't even
technology
touch that.
nowadays versus the Titanic. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm not gonna be in that scene where I'm laying in bed holding somebody's hand as a ship. No. But I have talked to people who love cruises and they always have a countdown to their cruise. And they actually love it. People say I should do it once, but I'm just saying, I'm not have to say.
Okay, that'll work out. Okay.
So
So check the loopy.
I feel like it's
Going like
close
this.
to.
Okay,
Okay.
all
But
right.
I don't think I was able to, I don't think I was able to, I don't think I was able to print out all of them. So we'll see what we got.
But again, you know, for these situations, like religion, if you're able to get something, you know.
I tried printing out, I'm trying to think how many we're actually able to get. What I'm gonna say, so I mean, we're gonna try and go through it, we're trying to go through it a lot slower, obviously we can't then refer to everything as gunshot wounds.
Where it's balcony to the deck.
You can go through.
So basically, I need to win a prize. So I need to put that prize in one of the Cracker Jack boxes. The Viking cruises.
No, I get you. It's fair, I understand. We may try and do, may also try and get Dr. Molina to come in, because she signed off on it. No, I know, not today, but we're gonna keep going to Monday. I know, so we're at least, we're gonna try it, that's why we're gonna try our best with you, and we're gonna do what we can. And then end up doing is go from there and figure it out. But that implies it. Good luck.
I just always give you that respect.
I have no idea what's on.
I don't. Because I just want to make sure, I'm not accusing anybody, I just wanted to make sure it's not one.
So Dr. Phillips, as a part of the medical examiner's office's record, there were photographs taken from the autopsy, is that correct?
Yes,
And have you had a chance to view those from the ME's office record?
I have.
I'm gonna approach you with what's been marked as states exhibits 75 to 101. Do you recognize these?
Yes, I recognize these.
And are these photographs, are they true and accurate copies of what's in the medical examiner's record?
Yes.
Have they been altered in any way?
There have been some stickers added marking them as exhibits.
But other than that, have these exhibits been?
They do not. No.
Your Honor, the state would offer states exhibits number 75 through 101.
All right, defense?
We approach on it.
Yes.
for the record, states exhibit 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 87, 88 through 97. I believe 100. I'm sorry, council, it was 100 and what number?
Judge, it was gonna be 103.
100 right there.
Now, Dr. Phillips, I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 75. What is this?
This is one of the standard photographs that we're going to take at autopsy. It is the identifying photograph. It's going to show the face of the decedent with its associated medical examiner case number.
And what was the associated medical examiner case number in this case?
2022-0556.
Well, let's move on to State's Exhibit number 76. What are we seeing here, sir?
What we are seeing here is a couple of defects. The one to which your attention is best drawn is the one that is towards the hairline, towards the top of the head and more towards the front of the head.
So would it be fair to say that it's this that we're trying to look at?
That's correct.
Okay. And what about that is particular?
That is a defect that appears to be a gunshot wound, albeit somewhat atypical. A typical entrance defect is going to be very round and regular, and it will have a ring or a rim of erythema and marginal abrasion. This one is slightly irregular, but there are some abrasions surrounding it. And again, I'm basing that opinion both on this photograph as well as other photographs, which we will see shortly.
And I'm showing you what was marked as State's Exhibit number 77. What is that?
This is a close-up of that previous photograph. In this case, the wound of entrance is the one that is slightly, it's in the center of the photograph, but slightly towards the bottom. The irregular defect above the left ear appears to be an abraded sort of zigzag laceration. The description of the wound that we just discussed a minute ago is the wound that is, again, more towards the center, a little bit slightly towards the bottom edge of the photograph. Again, you can see that there's some abrasion at the edge of this wound, and the edges are slightly irregular, making this somewhat atypical. From the skin alone, it's a bit difficult to tell whether this would be an entrance or an exit, but fortunately, again, findings in later photographs are going to elucidate that for us.
At any time, sir, if you need to, please let me know. But the wound that you were talking about, that's the entrance wound, it's that wound, correct?
That is correct.
Now I'm showing you what was marked as State Exhibit number 78. What are we seeing here?
This is the other side of the head, and there is a defect which appears most morphologically consistent with an exit gunshot wound that is on the right side of the head.
And how would you be able to tell an entrance wound from an exit?
When they are typical, the entrances, as I said, are round and regular, punched out. You can't push the edges back together, and they have these rims of abrasion or erythema redness surrounding them. Exit defects, when they are typical, are more irregular, more ragged. Very often you can push the edges of the wound together. That's from the skin. In some cases where wounds have impacted bone, you can also have directionality determined by findings on the bone, which again, were present in other photographs in this case.
In State's Exhibit number 79, this appears to be a close-up of the prior wound, is that correct?
That's correct. You can see that compared to the previous one, this one looks as though you could almost push the edges of the wound together. It's a bit torn. The edges are a bit irregular. So this would be most consistent from the skin, and again, underlying bone in other photographs with an exit defect.
Now I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 80. What is this?
This is a defect of the undersurface of the chin. And that is going to be most consistent with a tangential gunshot wound. That is to say, a defect produced by a bullet that doesn't strike and go directly into the body, but sort of grazes along its surface. Some characteristics of these will be a rounded edge, and you can also have skin tears and skin tags along the edges of the wound, as you see here.
And would you be able to come over, what are you talking about when you mentioned skin tags? And you may just want to come to the projector over here, sir.
So in this case, what I'm referring to when it comes to the skin tears are going to be these little sawtooth irregularities right here. These skin tags are basically the protrusions of the skin between the tears. So you can see tears here. There's a tear with a tag here. There's a tear with a tag here as well. There's a little bit of irregularity. These are sort of want to be skin tears and skin tags along the inferior surface.
Thank you, sir. I'm showing you State's Exhibit number 81. What are we seeing here, sir?
What we're seeing here is an abrasion on the back. Now, there could be a couple of explanations for this. This could be considered a gunshot wound abrasion, although this could simply be from another blunt impact. Ultimately, bullets are sort of high energy but relatively blunt objects. So I guess from this photograph itself, I wouldn't necessarily be able to definitively say this was a gunshot. It could be related to a ballistic impact, but there might be another way to get an abrasion of this sort.
Showing you State's Exhibit number 82. What are we seeing here, sir?
Here we are looking at the body lying face down, and we can see multiple defects as well as abrasions. Similar to the one that we described just a minute ago, there may be more than one way to get abrasions, but certainly ballistic impacts are one. It looks like we have abrasions on the back of the right elbow and on the proximal, which is to say the part of the thigh closest to the torso on the proximal right thigh. There are also, as I said, multiple other defects that would appear to be consistent with gunshot wounds.
Now I'm going to try and do the side by side with State's Exhibit number 83. What are we seeing there?
This is going to be a close-up of that defect on the superior right buttock. In the close-up now, we are seeing for the first time what I would characterize as a fairly typical gunshot wound of entrance. As we described before, you have a nice round hole. The edges aren't ragged, you can't really push them back together, and is surrounded by this rim of erythema, which is to say redness and abrasion.
And so the wound that we're seeing in State's Exhibit number 83 is also seen in State's Exhibit number 82 here, correct?
That's correct.
And what you were talking about, the ability to tell whether or not these are typical, sorry about that. Always difficult to, yep. So right there, is that a closer view of it, a zoomed in?
That's a zoomed in view. Again, a nice, relatively round defect with that rim of abrasion and erythema.
Let's move on to State's Exhibit number 84. What are we seeing here?
What we're seeing, in addition to the previous photo of the body lying face down, is a closer view of the left buttock and the back of the left thigh.
And so the injuries that are in State's Exhibit number 82 also obviously can be seen in State's Exhibit number 84.
We can see some of them a little bit better. And we can also, in that second photograph, begin to appreciate yet another defect sort of on the horizon of the thigh.
And I'm going to zoom in on State's Exhibit number 84. Is there anything that you're noticing about these wounds in State's Exhibit number 84?
The two on the back of the thigh again seem to be fairly typical entrance defects with that red rim of abrasion and round circular appearance.
Now I'm going to move to State's Exhibit number 87. What are we seeing here, sir?
Here we see the body lying face up. This is a view of the genitalia, and we do see a couple of defects that would be consistent with gunshot defects. In addition, at the top of the photograph, we are seeing some of the medical intervention that was applied to the decedent as an attempt to save his life.
And to zoom in on this wound right here in State's Exhibit number 87. What are we seeing there?
So this is a wound which I would be more comfortable assigning as an exit. Having said that, it's a bit overlapping with the morphological characteristics of entrances in that it's fairly oval and the edges aren't too irregular. That said, there's a bit of irregularity to them, but what you're not seeing is that marginal rim of redness and abrasion. Instead, there's a bit of ecchymosis, which is some bleeding into the underlying tissues, but that sort of red marginal abrasion is not prominent here.
Now moving on to State's Exhibit number 88. Now, what is this a photograph of?
So again, these are images of the defects on the left buttock and the back of the left thigh, which again appear to be relatively typical entrance defects with that round appearance and the surrounding rim of redness and abrasion.
Now moving on to State's Exhibit number 89. What is this a photograph of?
Here we're looking at the front of the left thigh. We see that sort of oval but without abrasion exit defect that we discussed a minute ago. We are also seeing two more defects. The one on the front of the distal thigh, which is to say further away from the torso, appears to be a somewhat irregularly shaped exit defect. The one on the lateral surface of the thigh, that is to say off to the lateral side, is again oval but somewhat irregular, and it does have a little bit of abrasion next to it. This one might be a little bit difficult just on its face to give a entrance versus exit, the one on the lateral thigh.
So then to go into State's Exhibit number 89, just in more detail. So this wound right here, so it would have been in the upper thigh, right around.
That's correct. That's the one that is somewhat oval, but has no real abrasion on the edges of it.
And then what we're seeing in State's Exhibit number 89 right here, it would have been a wound that's more on the outer thigh.
Outer or lateral thigh, that is correct.
And then finally, that last wound that's right there, it would have been lower on the thigh.
More distal, which is to say further from the torso. That's correct.
And you stated right now that that second wound, this one, it looks more like an exit.
That one's a little bit harder to tell. It's the other one that's more distal that I think is a bit more irregular. You can see it almost looks triangular compared to the oval of the lateral thigh.
Now I'm going to State's Exhibit number 90. Well, let's start with this wound. What are we seeing here?
This is that defect that we saw just on the horizon of the thigh a minute ago on the photograph of the left buttocks and the back of the left thigh. So we had those two defects in the left buttock and two defects in the back of the thigh. And then there was that other defect that was just barely becoming visible on the lateral thigh. So now we're seeing that more clearly, and that one does appear to be a fairly typical entrance defect. It looks like it's pretty round and it has that marginal abrasion and redness or erythema.
And so just to clarify for the jury, so in State's Exhibit number 90, with that one,
That's the one that looks more like an entrance wound. The interesting finding in this photograph is that tail of abrasion that is extending from the defect on the lateral thigh that we discussed,
so right,
that I was a little confused about, that we see right here. And since that abrasion is extending between them, that would at least suggest from the outer surface of the body, these two may be related as the bullet's gone very superficially. If that were to be the case, then I would believe that the one towards the back of the thigh is the entrance, the one towards the front of the thigh would then represent the exit.
now I'm going to State's Exhibit number 91. What are we seeing here?
This is one of those abrasions which we mentioned earlier. Again, it's always difficult to say definitively how someone were to get an abrasion, but a ballistic impact would certainly be a possibility. It could have been a blow from a different blunt object. I can't rule that out entirely.
Moving on to state's exhibit number 92. What are we seeing here?
So we are now looking at the backs of both thighs, and one sort of tidbit of interest is you'll notice that the knees are not at the same height now that we've compared the two. So the defects we've been talking about on the left buttock and thigh, although I don't see the injury from the outside, the sort of shortening of that leg would suggest that at least one of those defects has probably injured and fractured the femur. So those are those defects on the left buttock and thigh that we were talking about. In addition, we are also seeing what looks like a fairly typical entrance defect on the back of the right thigh, and we are beginning to see some defects on the back of the right calf.
Now moving on to state exhibit number 93. What are we seeing here, sir? What is this one?
This is a defect on the lateral right thigh. This one appears morphologically or by shape to be an exit defect. We again do not see that nice red erythematous and abraded rim. And there is some irregularity to the contours of the edges.
So just for clarification for the jury, sir, that would mean that the wound is roughly here
That's correct, about there.
and it's an exit.
That looks morphologically consistent with an exit. Yes.
Showing you state exhibit number 94. What is this?
Now we're seeing sort of a pair of defects on the back of the right calf. Just from their appearance on the skin, these are going to be a little bit difficult for me to assign as entrances or exits, to be honest. They do, at least the bottom one there, tends to be more oval, fairly regular, and it seems that there's a bit of abrasion at the edges. However, it's also somewhat confluent with the one above it. So if you were to say, could this represent some sort of a strange exit defect from the outer surface of the skin, I don't think I could definitively say one way or another.
Now moving on to state exhibit number 95. What are we seeing here?
So this is yet another abrasion on the back of the right elbow. I will say that compared to the other two, although the same caveats apply, you can get abrasions different ways, ballistic impacts not being the only way to do it. The elongated sort of oblong nature of it, that one is moving more from just the abrasion of a ballistic impact to this looks much more like a grazed gunshot wound. And you can imagine, based on everything we've seen so far, we have some of those abrasions, the one on the thigh and the shoulder, that those are a little hard to say if they're ballistic or not. But you can see as we progress from those to this one, to the one under the chin, there's sort of a progression of this is what it looks like as a bullet progressively grazes or goes even deeper tangentially through the body. I think this one is a grazed gunshot defect abrasion.
Now, showing you what's been marked as state exhibit number 96. What are we seeing here?
Here again, we have a defect of the finger. This is going to be the left second or index finger.
So it would be this finger.
That's right.
And then in state's exhibit number 97, what are we seeing?
This is showing how that wound basically created a tangential gunshot defect of the base, the anterior base of the finger.
So would it be fair to say, based off state's exhibits number 96 and 97, that wound went through the left index?
It basically grazed the front of the left index finger near its junction with the palm.
Now I'm going to show you what's been marked as state's exhibit number 100. Can you tell me what is this?
This is a photograph taken after the incision of the scalp and the reflection of the scalp. Reflection meaning to peel forwards and backwards to allow the skull to be exposed. And what we are seeing is the front of the head is to the top, the bottom of the head, the front of the head is to the left side of the photograph. Yes, that was.
So what we have here is the skull. This is the reflected scalp. This is the forehead, basically, right about here. This is the back of the head. The ear will be down here. And what we have is a hole in the skull that corresponds to that defect that we described right at the very start of our test descriptions of the wounds.
And here, let me go back to that to help the jury understand what you're talking about. Are you talking about State's Exhibit number 76?
I am. This defect here is going to match with this hole in the skull on the basis of, you know, the correspondence of the location. The key aspect of this defect is you can see the hole here without any sort of shattering outwards of the skull. There is actually going to be internal beveling seen on other photographs in this case. Internal beveling means there's a conical loss of bone away from the surface of the skull. When the beveling is internal, that means the bullet has gone from outside in. When the beveling is external, that means the bullet has gone from inside out. So this, in conjunction with the findings on the skin, are telling us this projectile has gone here from the outside into the head.
So it entered into the left side of the head, is that correct?
This projectile did that, yes.
And if you want to take the stand, sir. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State Exhibits number 104 and 105. Can you take a look at these and what are these photographs of?
These are photographs like that one of the skull that has been exposed by incising the scalp and reflecting it. However, these are of the opposite or the right side of the skull. These are also showing a defect right here. And this defect, unlike the previous one, has external beveling. And this corresponds in location with that gunshot defect that we have already described with the sort of triangular shape and irregular edges that also look like an exit. So those two findings are going together. It looks like an exit on the skin, and the external beveling of the skull tells us it is going from the inside out.
So State's Exhibits number 104 and 105 depict something different from the other photographs.
The other photograph showed the left side of the skull with an internally beveled entrance. This shows the right side of the skull with external beveling of a defect at an exit.
And these two photographs were also contained in the medical examiner's office file that you reviewed.
That is correct.
Okay. Your Honor, State would move or State would offer State Exhibit number 104 and 105.
Do parties want to approach? All right, State's Exhibits 104 and 105 are admitted.
Permission to publish, Judge.
Granted.
Showing State Exhibit number 104. Can you please explain to the jury if you would like to explain what we're seeing here?
So what we're seeing here is a zoomed in view of the exit on that opposite side of the skull. What I'd like to do, if I could, is scoot these over towards each other, and you can take this photograph away.
Watch the chamber. And he's showing, for the record, what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 100 and 104.
So remember, as we've looked, yes, thank you. As we've looked at this one, we see a nice round hole without a conical loss of bone on the outside. As we look at the other,
Hold on, doctor, sorry.
sorry,
There you go.
thank you. As we move our attention to the other defect, what you see here is a defect of the skull right here. We see fractures extending from the defect, but you see right along here, this somewhat conical or outward loss of bone from the outer surface of the skull. This right along here is external beveling. So that indicates from the skull that there is an exit, a bullet going from the inside out. If we could show the other photograph.
And this
And
is
this
state
is-
exhibit number 105.
Thank you. Yes, this is the zoomed out version showing where we are. Here we go. Now we have it more in anatomical positioning. The top of the head is here. The back of the head is here. We are looking at the right side of the head. This is the right ear to orient you. And this is that defect, which again, you can see the regions of external beveling at these edges. Sorry, these edges right here.
And based off of your review of these photographs, would it have been a shot that went straight? Would it have been one shot? What do you believe?
So based on my review, I can see in these and other photographs that there have been skull fractures and damage to the brain. I know something went in here and I know something went out here. If that is a single projectile, then that would make this an entrance, this an exit with a perforation of the brain. However, based only on the photographs, I wouldn't necessarily be able to rule out that there weren't two shots that injured the brain, and that something odd had happened with one of the shots entering here and going to some other part of the body, and some other part of the body being shot with an exit here. But certainly something went in right here and something went out right here. And there is damage to the brain with bleeding inside the head, skull fractures, and yes, damage to the brain.
So, and you can take a seat, sir. So, based off of what you just said, what type of injuries would we expect based off of what we've seen from the gunshot wounds to the head? Or to the wounds in the head, right?
With an injury to the central nervous system, in most cases, I would expect that to be rapidly, if not immediately, incapacitating. That is to say, I would expect a loss of consciousness with a shot that fractured the skull. I apologize. Would you be so kind as to put the identification photograph up as well?
Yes, sir.
Again, we can see clearly skull fractures in the photographs we've just explored. I know that there are
And this
almost certainly going to be other fractures as well, based on this photograph.
And just for the record, this is state's exhibit number 75.
Yes, that's correct. So what you'll notice here that we did not discuss previously are the ecchymoses or bleeding surrounding the eyes. That to me looks most indicative of bleeding from fractures of the base of the skull. So again, we know that gunshots have traumatized the skull and the brain. This is probably indicative of the fact that not only are there fractures on the vault of the skull or the top of the skull, there are probably fractures at the base of the skull as well.
You mentioned that the wounds that we observed to the head, that would have been incapacitating, is that correct?
I believe that the most likely, in fact, in all probability, yes, those would have been rapidly or immediately incapacitating with a loss of consciousness.
And with the wounds that you've observed in these photographs to the head, would that have caused this person's death?
In isolation, I would expect these to have ultimately proven fatal, with the caveat, of course, that these defects are what we would call supratentorial. They are injuring the cerebrum, the
Excuse
big.
me. Do you want to spell that word for the court reporter, please?
Certainly, if I can. Supratentorial. They're injuring the large hemispheres of the brain, but you have to remember that the tentorium TENTORIUM is a reflection of the dura that separates the cerebellum and brainstem from the cerebrum. The key thing to remember is that those portions of the brain below the tentorium are going to be where your respiratory systems hit. So although I expect this to be rapidly or immediately incapacitating, there may not be an immediate cessation of respirations and cardiac function. And so someone might continue to breathe and still have a heartbeat, even though they were unconscious as a result of these wounds.
But would you expect for that person to pass away very shortly after a wound like this?
I would expect that person, if untreated, to pass away very shortly. And I would expect, if treated, that person to ultimately be pronounced brain dead once all of the appropriate neurological tests had been administered. Again, in most circumstances.
Let's talk about the other wounds that we've seen in these photographs. Do you have any opinion on the survivability of the other wounds?
Unfortunately, we're going to be limited in that simply because we are looking only at the photographs. We're also going to be limited in that because there is surgical intervention. So it would be fair to acknowledge that even if we were to be reviewing everything about this case, this is a case where the forensic pathologist must follow the surgeon through the body and trust that the surgeon has followed the bullets. Whereas in a case without that medical intervention, all the forensic pathologist would have to do is follow the bullet through the body and see what injuries there were.
Doctor, I'm gonna ask please, if you can please slow down.
Having said that, there are no injuries to the chest that I saw. Now, bullets can go up, they can go down, they can go in all different directions. But where we have injuries is sort of the buttocks and the thighs and the genitalia. And we know that there was surgeries done in the abdomen. I don't see any gunshot defects up in the chest. Abdominal wounds, depending on what it hit, those could be relatively rapidly lethal if they struck a major blood vessel. But if a major blood vessel was not struck, there is nothing about an injury to, say, the bowels that is going to be immediately or even rapidly fatal. It's possible that you could die from complications thereafter, but those would not necessarily be immediately fatal.
But that would be differentiated from the wound to the head.
The wound to the head, again, I think would be immediately incapacitating and would, untreated, be rapidly lethal. If treated very quickly, would probably, I'm not a clinician, so everyone who comes to me is dead already, but I would expect that to progress to brain death because that is not uncommonly seen in our practice.
So based off of your training and experience, in your opinion, what do you think caused the death of this person?
In this case, the gunshot wounds caused the death with the
Objection
most.
calls for strangulation, Judge, and the witness has already restricted his testimony in terms of what he saw, what he read, to those categories that he mentioned. So my position is that anything else would be speculation at this point.
All right, that'll be overruled.
You can answer, sir.
Based on my review of these photographs, the gunshot wound to the head is going to be fatal, and there may be some contribution from the other gunshots.
Now I'm gonna show you what's been marked as state's exhibits number 107 and 108. Do you recognize these?
Yes.
What are these photographs of?
These are photographs of the body taken relatively early in the examination at the start of the complement of photographs that we have, and they depict some of the medical interventions that were attempted.
And state's exhibits number 107 and 108, they were included in the medical examiner office's records, correct?
They are included in that complement of photographs, yes.
And they are true and accurate.
Yes.
Passes, Judge.
All right. Defense, do you have any objection to allowing everybody to take their break now and come back with cross-examination after the break?
No objections.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna have us do our break now because the court reporter needs a break because she's been writing down everything that everyone's been saying. So we're gonna come back at 1:30. Again, you've heard some evidence in this case. You're not allowed to discuss it amongst yourself or think about it internally. You're not to start deliberating whatsoever. I'll let you know when it's time to deliberate. If you see anything, don't watch it. If somebody tries to talk to you about this case, tell them you're on this jury and they're not to talk to you about the case. You are not allowed to do any investigation. Everything that you need to know about this case is to come from inside the courtroom. Does everyone understand? All right, we can go off the record. There are plenty of places to eat, as you know. All right, everyone, please